Straight to the latest from the political crisis in Sri Lanka. According to the latest reports, Sri Lanka's President Maithripala Sirisena is considering backing down in the light of the country's constitutional crisis. President Sirisena is considering dropping the attempt to dissolve the parliament. This move could possibly ease weeks of political deadlock. Sources close to the president say that Sirisena may rescind the order. This is a preemptive move by the president as the court may overturn his earlier decision. A second source in Sirisena's party says that the president was looking for a dignified exit by withdrawing the dissolution order. The Supreme Court is expected to announce its decision as early as the 7th of December. The country has been in a crisis since Sirisena replaced Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe with Mahinda Rajapaksa last month and then issued an order dissolving the parliament and called for a general election. Sri Lanka's top court had stayed the dissolution order pending a hearing that starts on Tuesday. The parliament had resumed meeting after the court's order. Ever since then, Mahinda Rajapaksa has already lost 2 confidence votes in the parliament but has refused to resign. The impasse has also pushed the island currencies to record lows, causing turmoil on its stock and bond markets. This even as the country awaits the Supreme Court's ruling on whether President Sirisena's earlier order was legal or not. Now we have Iqbal Athas of Sunday Times Lanka joining us from Colombo live. Thank you, Iqbal Athas, for taking time out to be with us here on World is One. Talk to us. Now you have multiple sources claiming that President Sirisena might be taking 1 or 2 steps back.
Well, he is, but I'm not too sure whether there will be a withdrawal of the dissolution order. That is only speculative at this moment, but he certainly is taking a back step in this sense that he has already told a delegation of the United National Front, which is headed by the previous Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, that he would consider any new motion of no confidence against his own Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Now, it was during discussions on this last Friday that he hinted at the prospect of his order being withdrawn, but that's actually a secondary issue as things stand now. At the moment, there are 2 key issues. The first is what is going to be taken up by the Parliament on Wednesday, that is 1 day from now, where there is a motion on no confidence. Now, the issue of numbers in Parliament has been resolved with the predominantly Tamil National Alliance expressing support to Wickremesinghe, which means their 14 MPs are going to back him. So together with Wickremesinghe's 103, they have a comfortable majority in Parliament. And therefore, it will be inevitable for President Sirisena to refuse to accept that motion. And the immediate impact of that motion is that the government of President Rajapaksa, what I mean is his cabinet as well as the Prime Minister himself, ceases to hold office in terms of the Constitution. That's one aspect. The other aspect, which is still a stalemate, is thereafter who in the United National Front is going to become the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, the new Prime Minister. There is an issue here because the United National Front is insisting that it should be the ousted Prime Minister Wickremesinghe. And Sirisena has repeatedly insisted that he is not going to name him. So we have still not come to that position.
Right.
The issue is going to arrive. Go ahead.
Right. In that sense, I was going to ask that, Mr. Iqbal Athas, what happens to Sirisena right now? Sirisena, as you're rightly saying, has been refusing to reinstate Ranil Wickremesinghe, the ousted Prime Minister, as the new Prime Minister. And now we are hearing these reports from sources that Sirisena is going to rescind that order to dissolve the parliament. The question is, what happens if he does do that? What happens then to the political stalemate in Lanka?
As I said before, this move to rescind the order has also been suggested last Friday night during talks with the United National Front. So that's not an absolutely certain assertion. But the answer to the question is whether it's going to take away the case which is now being heard by the country's highest court, the Supreme Court, which acts as the constitutional court in Sri Lanka. it is highly unlikely that that position will change even if President Sirisena does withdraw, because the challenge before the court is on the dissolution and not on the withdrawal.
All right, but how do you see the situation panning out with all these multiple factors at play? Because at the end of the day, be it the Parliament of Sri Lanka or the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, neither of it is in a sense legitimate, because Mahinda Rajapaksa has lost the vote of confidence twice. You're talking about another no confidence motion that's up for the cards. This even as the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka will pronounce the verdict on whether President Sirisena's order to dissolve the Parliament was legal in the first place. That's on the 7th of December. But we right now are on the 3rd. Lot is going to happen from now in the next 4 days before the Supreme Court pronounces the verdict.
Well, there are key issues in this current imbroglio. Number one is the dissolution of Parliament itself, which is now being adjudicated by the Supreme Court. The second is a case now being heard, which is a writ of quo warranto on the new Prime Minister, Rajapaksa. That is that the appeal court in Sri Lanka is hearing a case where there is a petition to say that his appointment is illegal. Those are the two aspects that are being considered by the country's courts. In the meantime, as a result of the as a result of the dissolution, we have seen a tussle between the legislature and the executive. That is what is trying to be resolved on Wednesday with this new motion. And earlier, the passage of such a motion was difficult because there was this issue of the numbers. And the Tamil National Alliance, which had not supported any major political party in Sri Lanka in the last 50 years, have thrown their weight behind Wickremesinghe. So
that's unprecedented. That's unprecedented. That is unprecedented. And that being the case, tell us, what are the chances of Ranil Wickremesinghe returning as the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka and the chances of a fresh elections? Between these two options, what is the most likely and how likely is it?
Well, the chances of Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe returning as Prime Minister is if only President Sirisena wins. But we have seen on a number of occasions when he has reiterated that he is not going to appoint Prime Minister, Mr. Wickremesinghe, quote, under no circumstances, unquote. So if he does change, then it's going to be an embarrassing position for him. On the other hand, Mr. Wickremesinghe's own party is insisting that it should be him and no other.
All right, but if I were to ask you, how will this stalemate ease? What is the one thing that will make the pin drop in the scheme of things so that you have a legitimate cabinet and a legitimate Prime Minister at the helm of affairs?
Well, the question on legitimacy is actually a view that is being challenged by both sides. The present government argues that the sittings of the Parliament are not legal, and therefore they have ignored this request to cut down funds for the Prime Minister as well as the ministers. On the other hand, it's the former government members who are contending that they are legally, the resolutions have been legally passed. So that by itself is a debate which needs to be resolved.
Mr. Iqbal Atas, senior journalist, joining us live from Sri Lanka's capital, Colombo. Thank you so much, Mr. Atas, for taking time out and sharing your thoughts on the ongoing political crisis in Lanka.